of what is happening around the market according to you, and then from there on we'll take it up.
Yeah, fine enough. So let's just look at the current status of the markets, current texture of the markets. If we look at Nifty, Nifty has rallied for almost over 1,000 points now, from its low of around 15,200. But the entire rally, although it's been of 1,000 points, it has been there's no major strength in the rally. You cannot really say that there's a lot of run up in the rally. Though it's rallying, there have been several headwinds on the way. Uh, First of all, the dollar index uh, was troubling basically. So dollar index has pretty much been cooled off since the last couple of days. But then crude oil is again troubling again. So there are headwinds along the way. So that is part one of the thing that which is not giving much confidence in the rally. But all rallies begin with this kind of skepticism only, that there are some headwinds along the way. So we cannot rule out simultaneously. We cannot rule out that the rally cannot sustain. Uh, Now, but when we look at the constituents of the constituents of the rally are primarily auto sector, IT sector, which are IT sector and metals, which are pretty much rising from the dead after a lot of crackdown. The only good part of the rally is auto sector, which is now at all-time highs, above the 2018 high, which has finally given the breakout this month only. So I'm not sure why this has not been making news, but auto sector is has given a very strong breakout above the horizontal breakout, we call it in technical terms, and it's a very strong breakout. And let's just hope that it sustains. But it's a very good breakout. Uh, second, secondly, obviously, FMCGs has been supporting Nifty all along right now. But FMCG's nature is always as a contrarian bet against the index. So while FMCG is rising and supporting Nifty, it is in a way not the best bet to uh, say that it can lead the Nifty as such. So I would be happy to see auto rising, auto leading the rally. But at the same time, we need more sectors to lead the rally. So there are other sectors that are missing right now. So there's no collective breath right now. That is the problem. The third part is that the entire rise, if we look at from 15200, the entire rise in the Elliott wave fashion, the rise is not impulsive in nature. If we break it down, it was earlier looking like a double zigzag. Now it looks like probably a triple zigzag, but does not look like an impulsive rally. So multitudes of factors which are leading to the fact that probably it's a bear market rally and not a fresh bull run to begin with.
Right. Perfect, sir. So you also track a lot of broader markets, I believe, and I would love to have your take on it because I think talking about macros, fundamentally, although ऐसा कहा जा रहा है कि inflation has recent most figure that we got, that would probably be the peak. But overall, I believe this is going to be a very slow recovery there. So from there on, what do you think? What are broader markets saying according to you, and what are the macro fundamentals saying according to you, sir?
So let's start from the inflation part of it. So the general narrative in the markets is that inflation is bad for the economy. But when inflation picks up, it is definitely bad for the economy, because inflation picks up as a supply side shock kind of inflation, and usually not a demand led inflation. But when inflation sticks to it, that becomes generally because supply gets filled up eventually, and but if still the inflation is sticking to it, so then it's usually a demand led inflation. So I differ from the point of view that inflation is bad for the economy. I would say that inflation is not really bad for the markets. Uh, and historically, we have seen. Let me just point as an exact as per the exact chart data points. So in in the rally of 2003 to 2007, Fed was continuously raising the rates, and markets were rallying along. It was only when Fed started cutting the rates in December 2007, markets started cracking down after that in Jan 2008. Something similar happened also in 2020. Uh, Before somewhere in December 2000, somewhere in December 2019, I think Fed started cutting the rates, and that's when the markets also started falling. Markets started falling after a lag. Markets fall after a lag of when the Fed starts to cut the rates. Usually, when the Fed cycle is going up, Fed interest rate cycle is going up, Indian stock markets have been in particularly had a positive correlation with that, with their cycle. So let's just presume that Fed's fund rate is a representative of inflation. In that case, we have a positive correlation with inflation, or I would say a positive correlation with the Fed funds rate cycle, which is a representative of inflation. However, when we look at the constituent of it as the crude oil and all, so crude oil, when we look at it, so uh, now crude oil, there's an unprecedented, uh, uncharted territory which it was trying to go to. Although we have seen one $50, around $147 in crude oil back in 2008, I think. So, but then it was not very sticky. It quickly cracked down after that. Right now, we are consolidating in a very large range of $130 of Brent to somewhere around $90-95 at the bottom. So it has been moving in a consolidation rectangular range for the last 4 or 5 months. Rectangles are generally continuation patterns. So if we have seen a upsurge prior to that, so the chances of an upward continuation above $130 becomes high. Uh, Purely from the technical standpoint, there's a high degree chance that crude oil could be continuing upwards. That can be a pain point going forward. Uh, so if we go on to make a new high in crude oil, that can be a little difficult. Uh, However, when we look at dollar index could be at the fag end of its rally. It recently corrected from around 109 to 107 today, so it's a minor bit of a cool off, uh, but it is just a cool off. We we cannot really see a reversal right away. It might just take about 112 to 115 levels. From there, we expect it to really start topping out. Now, dollar index has had an inverse correlation with emerging markets, copper, as well. So once dollar index starts cooling off, we can start seeing the strength in emerging markets. Uh, I would like to highlight one more point here, that emerging markets ETF, which is the MSCI Emerging Markets ETF. It is currently below the 2007 peak. Now that's quite a bit of correction. 14 years of pretty much no returns, negative returns, I would say. That is a little difficult part. Simultaneously, even Nifty, if we look at Nifty in dollar terms, we are not much ahead from 2008 peak. In 2008, Nifty in dollar terms made a high of around 160. That is Nifty divided by USD INR rate, prevalent in Jan 2008. Right now, it is at 200. So if you look at it in the absolute terms, in 14 and a half years, the returns are about 30% or something, and that is it, less than 30%, around 25%. So that is it. In the absolute terms, this is the 14 and a half year return in dollar terms for Nifty. But in the entire emerging market space, Nifty has outperformed several other countries, several other economies. Um, so USD INR has been a concern right now. So as again, there have been a lot of headwinds. Uh, the last of the headwind still, which we have not yet faced, is gold. Now, gold has been consolidating since 2020. It has been moving between 1700 to 2050 zone. Again, a rectangular zone, and there's a high probability again that it can break out. I think, in my opinion, that how it is going to pan out is that when all these factors collide, the negatives collide, and that could be the part when markets could be making a good strong bottom at that point of time. So again, a lot of headwinds. Let's see how that pans out.
Right. Perfect, sir. Sir, I also want to understand a little bit about the FII selling that we had seen a huge rally of not rally, a huge sell off that we had seen in FII selling. Uh, उसमें थोड़ा सा it has slowed down a little bit, but given the macro factors, at that time it was, of course, everything was, the macro factors said that FIs would sell, and it happened. So do you think that would continue right now, or now that US inflation has kind of peaked and the factors that you just described, what do they say about FIs now, do you think?
So let's just look at historically how things have happened between FII versus DII. So in 2018-19, now the current texture of the markets with large swings, as we are seeing in Nifty, probably a 2,000 point swing is happening, and 2,000 up and down swings are happening. Large swings are happening in Nifty. The similar kind of swings were happening in 2018-19 as well. Uh, and at that point also, FIIs were selling. For 2 years, FIIs continuously were sellers and DIIs were buyers. Somehow, when the 2020 panic came in, the DIIs turned sellers. At that time, retail lost the grip, probably exhausted, panicked, whichever way. Uh, but at that point of time, FIIs turned buyers in 2020. So it's like taking the baton from them when FIIs start taking the baton from DIIs when they lose. Uh, Probably they get exhausted or they lose the new flows or something like that happens. Because the similar pattern was also seen in 2008 to 13 kind of a correction. In 2008, FIIs did sell. FIIs were the net sellers, but DIIs were buyers, which was the good part. However, when the correction prolonged to 2009, 10, 11, 12, in 2011-12 period, DIIs turned sellers. That time again, probably retail started losing the grip. Retail as a mass, uh, large retail mass. So, and at that point of time, FIIs turned buyers. Probably they were seeing the end of some cycle, some interest rate cycle or something. So, and 2013 onwards, we started seeing the rally. So, uh, at some point of time, this cycle has to change. Now, till now, the way I am seeing it is that till now DIs have really supported. Retail has really done a lot on SIPs, uh, and that is the only reason why Nifty has not really cracked. Uh, on an otherwise scale, Nifty would have easily cracked by 30 till 13,000 or probably lower. Uh, but in such cases, we have seen that if the correction prolongs, if there's a continuous support for the flows and the index is not really cracking in price, the correction prolongs in time. So if we had had an 18-month rally from March 2020 to October 2021, uh, if Nifty does not have to crack in price, the correction will have to complete in time, which could also be a lot of time, which could be at least a good 12 to 18 months again. So the time equality could be there in such cases if the correction, if DIIs, if retail keeps on with its SIPs, and if DIIs remain buyers, uh, that is one of the major factors. Now, coming to whether FIIs will turn buyers or not, or how will FIIs get into the buying mode, let's just look at it from 2 point of views. Primarily, the dollar index point of view. So, dollar index is probably the guiding point here for FII selling. You can pretty much correlate the dollar index movement with the FII's stance on Indian markets along with the other emerging economies. So until unless we see dollar index topping out, reversing, this money which has flown to, which can be said in a narrative fashion, which has flown to reserve currency of the world, it can flow back to the riskier assets only when we see dollar index topping out, whether it's coming back to the emerging markets or it's coming back to our Nifty, Indian markets in particular. So we need to see. I would say that the anchor part would be dollar index in such a case. And so simultaneously, we'll also see some bit of, you can say, uh, some bit of patterns forming, some bit of bottom forming also in copper, industrial metals, and all. So that can be some bit of lead indicator, but eventually it's the dollar index that will have to do the job here. That can pretty much correlate. Once we see dollar index topping out, we can pretty much say that Nifty could be bottoming around at that point of time as well. And FIIs could be turning buyers post that.
Right. Great, sir. Thank you so much for that explanation, sir. Sir, next I want to understand a little bit about different sectors and how they may be affected with the current scenarios. So, of course, you briefly discussed auto sector that this has been kind of giving a huge boost.
Right.
Do you believe so? So I've been asking this in quite a few spaces recently. जो भी हमारे guests आए थे कि why is auto actually moving? Because this is kind of contrary that interest rates are rising and loans are getting costlier, so people should be cutting down on such luxury experiences. And generally, the response has been that today, at least in India, it's people don't really look at loan rates to get a car. It's not a luxury. It's when they need it, they save for it and they go for it.
Absolutely.
Uh,
We just have 28% luxury tax on the cars and all, but cars are really not a luxury anymore. Really,
right.
that's part of the need. I think that's just one notch above FMCG these days. So we are not much above. We should just call that auto as a consumption sector only now. Any
Yeah.
which way, 100% depreciable. So yeah, tell me.
बिल्कुल. So, but then still, why the rally is my question. So I understand ठीक है, it may not be impacted. I can understand कि FMCG जैसे for instance, whenever there's a recession or something, FMCG is kind of the defensive sector because that is not going to stop. But why
Right.
the rally maybe?
Okay, fundamental reasons. I'm probably the worst guy to ask the fundamental reasons for any rally, but yeah, auto has given a very strong breakout. I can just purely tell in technical terms, uh, the entire inverted head and shoulders that it formed from 2018 highs and the horizontal breakout above the neckline that it has given. I just hope it sustains for 1-2 months, but it's a pretty good rally that has come up. But
Right, right.
other than auto sector, we have also seen other sectors on a longer run basis. Purely, I will tell you on the relative strength basis, which sectors are looking good on the longer run basis. So, other than auto, I would say capital goods are turning up in India big time. That's a very large turnaround that is happening in the capital goods sector. These are the sectors that can outperform Nifty over a longer run for the next several years, in fact. So capital goods would be, other than auto, capital goods would be my other bet in the sectoral part. I would also look at pharma. Although pharma has not done much over the last few months, but pharma is not really out as yet. So I see a continuation in pharma. Uh, IT sector is one sector which I will avoid completely for a few years now. Uh, it's a very strange fact that IT sector, when we look at the IT sector's relative strength chart versus Nifty since inception, it made a peak in 2000, and its 2020-21 levels were practically lower than the 2000 peak, when the year 2000 peak. So on the relative strength chart, so IT, I would say, could be an avoid for the next few years. Uh, but simultaneously, if IT is not doing well, so there are other sectors. So as we have discussed, auto, capital goods, pharma. Uh, I would look at metals on dips. At again, a dollar index can be an anchor point for that, for metals as such. Uh, but and there's one more sector which has been pretty much lying low since many years. That is the PSUs. So hopefully, let's see its cycle also turns up. Probably these 4 or 5 sectors I'll look at over the longer run basis.
Right. Perfect, sir. Perfect. And sir, this is very interesting. The last thing that you said was PSUs. So this is something that a lot of people are very much divided over. I would say I've had this chat with a lot of people, a lot of experts on our podcast, and PSUs is something which you said it has been lying dormant for probably like a decade or so now, and now they have started moving.
Yeah.
So can
So
you tell us a little bit about that?
So basically, PSUs is a different galaxy. So there's a Milky Way galaxy, there's an Andromeda galaxy, and then there's a PSU galaxy. It has its own cycle. We don't know what the cycle is, but eventually, what we are seeing is that on a relative strength basis and otherwise on stock specifics. Now, PSU index consists of over 60 stocks, uh, BSE PSU index. and there's a fairly good strength bottom formations across the stocks. So at some point of time, that has to materialize. Uh, these are what the technical charts say. So I would keep my bet on PSUs, probably around 15-20% of my portfolio, and let it lie. Let's see. Let's see on that part. But PSUs, when they will move, how they will move, we have no clue. As again I said, it's a different galaxy altogether. It has its own rules.
And अगर कुछ नहीं तो एटलीस्ट कुछ डिविडेंड तो दे ही जाएंगे.
Yeah, there is, it has a cushion. So
Yeah.
there, the charts have a cushion. So we may not lose much. We might lose on time value. So time value is also.
Hello. Okay, I think Piyush sir may be facing some technical glitch from Twitter side. I'll just check and coordinate and get back. Just give us a moment. Hi, Brikav Chat sir.
हाय विशु, आपकी भी वॉइस आज एक और रही है.
सर होता क्या है ना, मैंने 2 अकाउंट से ज्वाइन किया हुआ था. आई जस्ट कॉल्ड टू चेक विद पीयूष सर एंड वो मेरा मोबाइल जो है वो फॉर सम रीजन मेरे हेडफोन से हट के स्पीकर्स पे चला जाता है. बट आई एम रियली सॉरी फॉर द ऑडियंस डिस्ट्रप्शन ऑडियंस. बट ब्रेकआउट चैट सर तो हमारे साथ रेगुलरली आते ही रहते हैं. ही इज इन फैक्ट अ को-होस्ट ऑफ दिस स्पेस एज वेल. सो सर थोड़ा सा आपसे भी क्या चल रहा है बातें हो जाए तब तक, जब तक सर हमें ज्वाइन करते हैं.
मैं तो एक्चुअली पीयूष सर को सुनने आया था, बट ठीक है. ये थोड़ा उल्टा, बट ठीक है. मार्केट ओवरऑल इज लुकिंग गुड. ऐसा टेंशन की बात नहीं है. HDFC आज 1% नीचे था, बैंक निफ्टी 1% ऊपर. तो प्रिटी मच सम्स अप की मार्केट में पॉजिटिविटी और स्ट्रेंथ दोनों है. सो वही जैसे मैं हर बार बोलता आता हूँ कि स्टॉक स्पेसिफिक बने रही है. बहुत सारे स्टॉक्स में अब तो जो डेटा एक महीने पहले तक बहुत वीक था, आज थोड़ा मतलब कंपेयर करूँ मैं तो बहुत ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग तो नहीं कह सकता, बट हाँ कंपैरेटिवली अच्छा स्ट्रॉन्ग है कि आप इंट्राडे ट्रेड्स या BTST ट्रेड्स या स्विंग ट्रेड्स जो आप पहले लेने से पहले थोड़ा सोचते थे, अब आप थोड़ा कॉन्फिडेंटली ले सकते हैं. सो ओवरऑल ब्रेड जो है मार्केट की वो बहुत अच्छी लग रही है. सो आई एम नॉट बेयरिश. मतलब थोड़ा सा हो सकता हूँ कभी इधर उधर हो जाता हूँ. मैं मेजरली बुलिश हूँ. स्टॉक स्पेसिफिक बना रहता हूँ, बने रहना भी चाहिए. एंड ठीक है, नथिंग टू फियर अबाउट एज ऑफ नाउ. जितने भी डेटा पॉइंट्स थे, इन्फ्लेशन था, वॉर था, सब प्राइस्ड इन हो चुका है. अब ज़्यादा कुछ बचा नहीं है अनटिल अनलेस सब कुछ और बड़ा हो जाए तो.
Hi,
तो नेगेटिव.
hello.
या हाय पीयूष सर इज बैक.
Hi sir.
Hello.
Yes sir.
So where were we?
राइट. सो सर थोड़ा सा वो हम लोगों ने PSUs को डिस्कस किया था कि दे आर वो मतलब पूरा वो चल रहा था उनका.
Right.
एंड तो या उसी में बीच में आई थिंक इंटरप्शन आ गया था.
Right. So PSUs
Right.
overall, I don't know if I completed that part. That PSU index actually constitutes of around 60 odd stocks, and broadly all the stocks look fairly decent. Downside is less, although yeah, they lose a lot on time when we invest. So, but but looking at it like that, so there's a fair possibility that the time cycle may have ended. So, and the overall outperformance to Nifty is expected going forward.
राइट. परफेक्ट सर. सर इसी से रिलेटेड एक ऑपोजिट स्पेक्ट्रम में इफ यू मे कॉल इट is the growth stocks, the new age companies, the internet companies, the Zomatos and the Paytms. तो उस पे सर आपका क्या जनरली व्यू रहता है?
So I look at the new age companies as the IPO index. I don't classify. There's no other way to study them. Uh, Theme-based indexes can be studied. For instance, IPO index can be studied, but we cannot really invest in IPO index. There's no such ETF, I guess. Uh, there's an MNC index also, which I'll talk about otherwise a little later. So IPO index overall, if you look at it from somewhere from 2016 onwards, uh, so IPO index always gets a very strong support whenever the market's correct. So somehow uh, these companies, although they might be pretty down for 50, 60, 70%, the new age companies, the chances are that they'll be getting some supports pretty soon. The way if I have to study from the IPO index behavior point of view, uh, but yeah, obviously it all depends on their individual chart patterns as well. But right now I'm just talking from the IPO perspective. So if you are collectively investing, as in from the past 1-2 years of IPOs, whenever they dip, you invest in them. So as if you make that as a separate theme based kind of an investment, then IPO index has done pretty well, and it must be among the leaders for the entire rally. That has been the case. It has been also among the first ones to recover from uh, any corrections. Uh, it is quite strange, but that has been the case. So people, as such, have always liked. Now, coming comparing, as you said, the opposite end of the spectrum. It is actually the opposite end of the spectrum, because when the masses go for when the people go for investments, they want newer ideas. They are probably not. They are probably tired of the older names. They want newer names which can run. So momentum is expected from them, not from some sale and hail. So that is why the new age companies attract a lot of interest. Again, they if you put too much uh, money on a single stock, you are bound to take higher risk, which is not advisable as yet, as such. But IPO index as a theme based investment has done fairly well for the last 5-6 years, and has pretty much led the rallies.
राइट ग्रेट सर ओके सो सर मेरे पास तो आपके लिए भी बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन हैं एक्चुअली बट हम मैंने एक ट्वीट पिन किया था इस स्पेस पे एंड आई आस्क्ड रिक्वेस्टेड आवर ऑडियंस टू पुट अप देयर क्वेश्चंस फॉर यू सो थोड़े से ऑडियंस के क्वेश्चंस ले लें सर
Yes, definitely.
ऑलराइट ऑसम सो ओके सो स्तुति मैम का क्वेश्चन आया है डिड यू ऑब्जर्व एनी चेंज इन द टाइप ऑफ करेक्टिव ईडब्ल्यू पैटर्न्स visible in the most recent correction? For example, are more expanding triangles, running flats becoming prominent than say typical zigzags, contracting triangles earlier? So that is the question, sir.
The recent Elliott wave patterns that I've been seeing are more complex in nature. The entire patterns that have been forming since October on its way down have been there have been not been a simple zigzag or simple flats at all. That is part one. The other she asked was contracting triangle. Contracting triangle, we saw triangles we saw were on their way up. On the when Nifty was rallying up, we saw some triangles forming on its way up from 7,500 to 18,600. But right now we are seeing very complex patterns of double combinations and triple combinations, double zigzags, triple zigzags. So not a simple pattern, not the first layer pattern at all. These are all complex patterns that has been forming, and I must say that they are highest on the difficulty level when it comes to Elliott waves.
Right. Thank you so much for that, sir. Okay, next question is by Kiran, sir. He wants to know, just heard your view on IT sector, and he wants your view on NASDAQ for it.
Okay, so NASDAQ, the view on the NASDAQ as such. Okay, so NASDAQ basically has been now NASDAQ has corrected probably around 38% right now for its entire rally from its 2020 lows. I think it has come back to around 12,000 from around 16, 17,000. I think that NASDAQ has yet to correct further. It can go to under 10,000 over a period of next few months. By when its correction should complete. It may not happen as again the correction may not happen in a single line. Corrections never happen in a single line. Crashes happen in a single line, and we don't expect crashes to happen. But the corrections entirely are yet to complete, and Nasdaq may take much more time. There have been a lot of froth in the FANG index per se, but that froth has been clearing up, and so we can see something under 10,000 over a period of time, where Nasdaq should end its correction over a broader time frame for the next 6-8 months, say.
Right. Thank you so much for that, sir. Okay. Next, sir, Varun Jain sir का question है, what about the triple top pattern forming in Nifty BNF charts? Is it the beginning of fall in the coming days, or will the market sustain?
So, which I'm not sure which time frame is he talking about the triple tops. So I cannot really say. I have not seen any triple top forming. I don't know. Is it on a decline based pattern? So if I have to talk about the prominent pattern on Bank Nifty charts, uh, so I don't see any triple top as it means I cannot recall that. But for Bank Nifty, Finance Index, and the Private Bank Index in particular, the larger pattern that I see is head and shoulders forming across the board. Bank Nifty is a slightly tilted one, but Private Bank Index, if you look at it, it's a very flat horizontal line on NSE Private Bank Index, that is. So that is one of the major head and shoulders pattern. So until unless it breaks the neckline, we cannot really say that it is bearish. Obviously, that is the way classical patterns work. But so far, it's keeping things on the edge. It's difficult to become bullish on this particular sector. So as you can recall, of all the sectors that I mentioned, I did not even touch to say anything on Bank Nifty, neither a positive nor negative, because even I'm not sure it is hanging above the neckline. Uh, all the three sectors, all these Bank Nifty, Finance Index, and Private Bank Index. So obviously, private banks are included in Bank Nifty as well. But overall, they are hanging above the neckline, and it's a very large head and shoulders pattern formed on weekly charts. So it's difficult to take a bet right now on this sector as such.
Right. Right. Thank you so much for that analysis, sir. Okay. Next question, sir. General sir का है. Sir, do you think that we should start SIP in auto ETFs for long-term view?
Yes, I would say. See, auto is one sector, so you cannot really over allocate because auto has just now given the breakout. So auto is one sector which you can do. The other sectors also which I mentioned. So if you can do the simultaneous 4 or 5 sectors, that would be a better idea. But yes, overall auto looks good to me. Auto can be a part of the entire basket.
Right. Right. Perfect, sir. Okay, next, invest in India, sir, or ma'am, question here. I think it's slightly incomplete, but he has asked, or she has asked, what's your take for horizon of 5 to 10 years? So they have not mentioned on what, but then handle is invest in India. So I'll take it as in the Indian stock markets.
So yeah, so first of all, let me just talk from the Nifty point of view then. So I don't see that. For me, the 25,000 to 30,000 case for Nifty is still on. We are very much on for that. So right now, what we are seeing from 18,600 October is a pullback. This pullback is not yet complete. We might just come down to 14,000, 13,000. I don't know the exact levels, but the mind should remain open to that. However, this could be just a larger wave too, and then we can have a new high coming up. We should be having because the larger interest rate cycle and the DXY cool off. So all these factors should remove the headwinds, and we can then have a good rally. So my instead of the 5 to 10 years point of view, I would say the next 3 to 5 years point of view. We should be able to see, say, okay, next 5 years point of view, we should be able to see something like 25,000 to 30,000 Nifty. After that, I cannot say. So whatever patterns form by then, we can then foresee, we can then have some projection. But at this point of time, my visibility would be maximum around till then.
Great. Thank you so much for that, sir. Okay, so next एक stock specific question है. If you don't track it, we can skip it, or if you track it, that will be great. So Aditya Birla AMC, what is the target for this stock stuck at 500 levels is what has been asked by Unrealistic is the name of the handle.
I really don't track stocks such. I
Okay,
look at all my stocks part is done by algos. So I look at
okay,
just the broad pictures and some macro markets.
great.
On
Great, sir. No, absolutely no issue, sir. Okay, next question, sir. Kiran Sarka again was other than or slash along with EW, what other indicators do you use to make trading decisions?
So there are two ways that I study. There are two ways that I take the trades. When I make my algos, so for my algos, I use several indicators. So the idea of making the algos is whatever I'm looking at the chart, looking, it should be captured by the code. So which indicator would be the right indicator to capture that exact movement that I wanted to capture. So I look at the basket of all indicators, I pick the best one, and then I modify the code. Sometimes I modify their formulas sometimes to look at it that ways. But I really don't have any particular favorite indicators. I probably use some 20-25 indicators across various algos. My favorite still remains the neat, clean charts, and I try to understand the candlesticks properly, uh, the patterns as such, be it the classical patterns, the candlestick patterns, the Elliott wave patterns. So if I have to look at the chart, I study that. Indicators I use only to uh, get that moment right, get that part of the turn of the stock or that index right to be studied by the algo, so that I can define the entries and exits accordingly. uh, I don't really track indicators much as such.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that, sir. So, in fact, we did get to touch upon it thanks to this question, Kiran sir's question.
Hmm.
But I would really request, I would want to have a complete separate space and understand so much more about algo trading from you.
Oh, definitely, anytime. We can
Awesome.
time. Great.
Okay. Next question, sir. Suti ma'am ka hai. She also wants to know your biased view on commodities as against a more balanced view based on what data says till now.
Okay, views on commodities. Okay,
Yes, sir.
commodities as such, there are multitudes of commodities. Let's just break them down. So first part of the commodities of is crude oil, the oil basket. So in the oil basket, I am largely bullish. I don't see any major reversals happening. Uh, then it's a continuation as I had explained with the rectangular consolidation that is happening from in the oil space. We should be seeing a continuation upwards. That is the oil part of the commodities, which is probably around 40% of the basket. Then the precious metal basket, gold and silver. Again, gold and silver, I would be slightly more bullish on silver on a longer horizon, and I see that gold is also going to do well from here. So if we look at the gold in dollar terms, as it is swinging back and forth between 1700 to 2000, 2050, there's a fair chance that it can make a new high and before it tops out. So gold, again, silver could be an outperformer versus gold, but gold again is yet to make a, looks like that it can, there's a high probability that it can make a new high. So this part is there. The other part of the commodities basket is also agri commodities. Agri commodities, I don't see a major part of the swing upwards going continuing. The wheat and the soybeans and soybean oils and everything, so they seem to be getting exhausted. The agri commodities may not be very bullish, which can be a good thing for food inflation as such. Uh, the last bit is metals, the industrial metals, copper and the like. So, in that space, copper should be a continuation. Once dollar, that will be again a continuation upwards when the dollar index cools off. So, barring agri commodities, I would say that bullishness is there in all of them, just that at different magnitudes, different intensities. But yeah, the cycle is still up overall.
Right. That's great to hear, sir. सर एक और क्वेश्चन आया है ब्रेकआउट चार्ट सर से, जो इस समय हमारे ब्रेकआउट चार्ट सर इज ऑलमोस्ट अ को-होस्ट ऑफ दिस स्पेस, ही इज देयर हियर सो ऑफन एंड ऑफन एज अ को-होस्ट एज वेल. ब्रेकआउट चार्ट सर, आप खुद ही क्यों नहीं पूछते सर से क्वेश्चन?
थोड़ा सीरियस कॉन्वर्सेशन चल रहा था इसलिए मैं ट्वीट ही करा. सो ओनली वन थिंग, हाउ डू यू think such amazing content for the memes? Because I think you every day post a meme uh, or a day or two later. So how do you think that? Because I know everyone knows कि ऐसा ऐसा market में चल रहा है, but to exactly bring that on a image in a meme, how do you think about it? मतलब anything you think specifically, मतलब out of market context thing, but if you want to share.
So how it happened was that I'll just tell you the story how it started. So back in 2018-19, I think I started getting very active on WhatsApp. Before that, I was not very active on WhatsApp either. So I started. We all get these forward videos and everything. So my mind would always go look at the forward videos, these videos, and go into the market direction. Somehow I was able to just see markets everywhere. So I started saving the videos. Over a period of time, I saved a lot of videos, and but yeah, I used to enjoy watching these videos as well. So whatever used to come to my mind, so I started posting them. So obviously, it started getting a good response from people. So then it became my habit as well. I just loved posting them, and it just kept on growing. But obviously, the the thought is all there's no forced thought. Whatever comes to the mind watching those videos, and whatever digs from the memory. Okay, I had seen this video. Whenever I see the market, sometimes I remember a meme. So imagine you have memes for thoughts. How strange would that be? So but sometimes that situation happens with me. So thanks to the WhatsApp university of videos, WhatsApp, you can say repository of videos, that has helped me post all these memes.
So everyone out there, जिनको ऐसा लगता था how does Piyush sir post such amazing memes, then you should start working from today. So down the line,
No,
down the line.
I think there's nothing to work on that at all.
But still, if someone is still curious, then how to do it, then the entire steps has been given by Piyush sir.
बिल्कुल सर, स्टॉक मार्केट के इतने सारे कोर्सेज हैं. एक सर मीम, स्टॉक मार्केट के मीम्स बनाने का कोर्स भी लॉन्च होना चाहिए पीयूष सर से.
राइट यही कर लेते हैं.
ओके, ठीक है, बैक टू ऑडियंस क्वेश्चंस. सर हम लोगों का नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आया है, कैन वी डू एनर्जी सेक्टोरल एसआईपी? As of now, DSP and Tata have these, and he's trying to he says that he's simply trying to ask if this sector can be tremendous in next 2 decades.
So energy sectors, first of all, the energy sectors data that I have is probably from the last 5-7 years and all. So I don't see a major rally in the energy sector going forward. NSE energy sector that I'm talking about. So I really don't see that in the top 5. I would not keep it. I'll give it an avoid.
Right. Okay. Krunal Thakkar sir का comment आया है like this. He said, describe October 2021 to present Nifty in कितना भी try कर लो bunny meme. Please and thank you.
So जितना भी ट्राई कर लो बनी, जब गिरना है तो गिरना ही है, फिर तो मतलब कुछ नहीं कर सकते. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next is by confusion here, and he's asked, as an investor who started with direct stocks in the last 2 years, I'm currently investing 50% in Indian equity and 50% in US equity through LRS. In the US, it is mostly tech, but have many small caps and innovation bets like ARK ETFs. Okay. Is this allocation 50-50 okay?
So I feel that the allocation broadly is okay, and the cycles we are broadly on an upward cycle only. This is the corrective phase. So broadly it's all okay, but maybe you need to look at the ARK ETFs and the not to go too much heavy on tech side of it. I would say that small cap is pretty good there. Small cap index could be a very good index to stick to, and even the S&P index as such. So reduce the weightage from tech and ARK kind of new age things. But overall, the 50-50 allocation is good.
Right. Perfect, sir. Okay. Next is by Gadfly, and their question is, Piyush ji, your view on Mire Hang Seng ETF. Can we do an SIP? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct, but Hang Seng ETF, Mire is, I think.
Hang Seng ETF.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see that Hang Seng can be a winner from here for several years. Shanghai Composite may still be, but not Hang Seng. I would not. I would not go with Hang Seng at all.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for that, sir. Okay. Next question is by Ajay Rana, sir, and he has asked, did we complete the first and second wave of fifth wave in longer time frame? Second, did we start the third wave currently from 15,200 onwards?
No, I don't think so that we have started the third wave yet. I think we are still in the second wave. We are still in it.
Right. Right. Thank you for that, sir. Okay. Okay, so these are stock specific again, but these are pretty popular stocks. In case you want to share any views, that's fine. Otherwise, you can skip them, sir.
You can.
Nilesh,
You
yeah,
can.
Nilesh sir has asked.
You can
Sorry,
please
sir.
stock specific questions.
Sure. We'll avoid. So for our audience, please avoid asking stock specific questions. We'll be discussing more of sectors and general learning questions today. Okay. Um, okay. Ranjay sir का question आया है. Is there any possibility that current rally is a nested 1-2 instead of a triple zigzag, and anything bullish regarding the metal sector? So second half, I think we have kind of discussed already, but yeah.
So 1-2 does not look like, because when you look at the internals of rally from 15183, it does not look like an impulse. There are zigzags and then there are X. So it's difficult to say. I can't even spot a single proper impulse. So I would not call it a 1-2 at all. For metals as such, metals yet to complete probably is the first major leg down in the correction. We may get a bounce in metals and IT both, because they have cracked a lot. So metals bounce would be as we call it, a dead cat bounce. It's an over cliched term, but there can be a B leg rally up in both IT and metals. However, the correction is not over yet. It will take time, and IT would broadly be an avoid for me from here on, for the investment purpose.
Right. Great, sir. Thank you so much for that. Okay, next question. Okay, I'm just looking. I'm just trying to avoid. So there are a lot of stock specific questions as well. Okay, Amit Das sir ka question आया था. In which sectors or themes do you want to bet on in the coming days? Sir, we have discussed that in the earlier part of the podcast. So we'll release a recording of this podcast immediately after it's over. You can listen to it maybe again. Okay, Ravinder sir का question आया है. What is your view, sir, on real estate sector for the next 2 years?
Real estate sector, okay. So real estate did pretty well initially, of the initial part of the rally, but real estate has not been sustaining of late. Somehow, however, I see that real estate on a longer term basis, we can see a rebound back to its previous. You can say it has been making a very large bottom formation from its 2008 lows. So overall, I have a better expectation from real estate, and it should rally. But so far, the bottom formation does not look fully complete. There may not be a significant downside in the real estate stocks from here. But overall, I see that there's a potential for the rally only. Though I will not call it a leader kind of a rally, but I still see a significant place for it to rally over the next few years.
Right, perfect, sir. Next question, Rohan Desai sir ka, he had also asked on realty and chemical sector.
Chemicals, if we can, chemicals basically, I track chemicals together with the healthcare. Healthcare stocks have about the BSE Healthcare Index again has around 60-70 stocks. A lot of chemicals are included in that. So the pharma leaders can be are a better bet right now. The top 12 NSE Pharma Index, the top 12 stocks which are in the NSE Pharma Index are, in my opinion, are a much better bet than the rest of the chemicals and all. So if I have to literally pick from this space, I'll go with the top large cap pharma. Avoid the chemicals as such.
Right. Perfect, sir. Akshay sir का भी similar real estate पे question था that we have covered. Um, okay. So, yeah. Next is by Charanjeev sir. He has asked any tidbits for likely wave 4 formation patterns by comparing the wave 2 either in time or price retracement or both.
Uh, okay. So whenever we have uh, like a shallow wave two, we have a much deeper wave four, and we have a when we have a much deeper wave two, we have a shallow wave four. So these are the generally the nature of the wave twos and wave fours that I have seen in relative terms. The complexities are also changing. The complexity it's a variation. It's a rule of alternation, but the complexities also change. If it's a simple double zigzag or something in a wave two, we are most likely to have a flat or a triangle in a wave four. So these kind of alternations are there, but again, the combinations are so many between wave twos and wave fours that we might just take an hour just to discuss that. Uh, but mostly, it's all about the shallowness and the depth of it, the price depth. So the more it's the more shorter and the more shallow the wave two is, the likely part is that its wave four is going to be completely opposite of that.
Right. Perfect, sir. Next question, Pradeep Jaiswal sir ka tha, your view on IT sector. Sir, we have already discussed that. We'll release a recording of this podcast immediately after it's over. So maybe you can listen to that. Next question, sir. Siban Rai sir ka aaya tha. Is it beneficial for IT metal sector of metal sectors for rupee to go down? So IT, I understand, sir. Metal sectors should be rupee ke jaane ka kuch impact do you see?
Uh, if I see the common denominator between rupee and metal sector, the way the question has been posed, the common denominator is the dollar index. So yes, the dollar index has an impact with the metal sector. So which again, dollar index also has an impact with rupee. So, but I would say that the anchor part here is not the rupee, but the dollar index. So yes, they are inversely correlated. So if the dollar index is strong, the metals are likely to remain weak. So and vice versa.
Right, perfect, sir. Rohit sir का sir question हमने metals तो in general discuss किया. He also wants if you have a view on steel stocks for the next 2 to 4 years in specific.
Okay, metals I'm overall bullish on the sector. So once we see dollar index cooling off, we should simultaneously see we should be able to we can expect metals bottoming out somewhere around that time as well. So overall I'm bullish. It's in my top five sectors metals for the next 2 to 3 years point of view.
Right. Perfect, sir. Next, Himanshu sir का question था. Today's Nifty move was led by IT sector, but for the past few days, IT was moving in the opposite of USD INR. And now suddenly it's leading the index and the major blue chips were underperforming. So can we expect today's spike was a fake one?
We cannot call it a fake one. Let's just say that okay, spike is a spike, rise is a rise. So, but yeah, the rise from today for the last few days, in fact, has been happening from the sectors which have been lying dead since long, and these are the dead cat bounces that have been happening. These are not the leaders of the rally, but yeah, some relief rally has been happening in the market. Uh, so, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, that this is there's a lot of skepticism in the rally, and the dead sectors have been trying to take it up. But other than auto, no major sector is actually leading the rally. Uh, so, because the other sectors are relatively just the weaker sectors trying to come up. So, as a leader of the sector, we don't have much other than auto and FMCG as such, which is a defensive bet as well. So, that is where the rally is in question. That is where the skepticism is there, and this is where the sustainability is also in question. So I would not be very gung ho about the rally, not as yet.
Right. Thank you so much for that, sir. Okay, Gadfly sir ka question was another question is your scenario analysis on the impact on Indian stock markets if US Fed increases rates by 75 basis points or more.
So we don't have a point-to-point impact on U.S. markets on Indian markets versus the Fed rate. There can be jerk reactions, knee-jerk reactions in Indian markets during that time, but largely we have seen that the cycles, the upward cycles of Fed funds rate, and the upward has a direct again pulling up factor with Nifty as well. So if Fed cycle is going up, then the chances are very high, which has a very high degree of positive correlation, that Nifty follows along and Nifty also rises. So the cycles remain together basically.
Right. Thank you so much for that, sir. Suti ma'am ka question was another question is do you consider changing your wave count if wave 4 seems to be retracing around 0.618? She has seen some EW experts do it, so was wondering if this is a strong guideline or something.
No, I don't. I don't necessarily change it. So if now there's a very interesting part that happens when wave four retraces to 0.618. If it is not clashing with the wave one uh, intersection, wave one price levels at all, despite correcting 61.8% of wave three, uh, then there's a high degree of chance. Okay, second factor is also that the wave 3 was not 1.618 of wave 1. Suppose these two factors collide, that wave 3 was not 1.618 of wave 1 and it still corrects, the wave 4 corrects 61.8%. The chances are very high that it can form into a fifth wave extension. So no, I don't change the wave count until if I have these two factors in place, I will not change the wave count.
राइट परफेक्ट सर सर हम लोग के पास कुछ 4-5 क्वेश्चंस इस टाइप के मिला के हैं कि व्हाट इज योर व्यू ऑन स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स फॉर इन द कमिंग years maybe in a medium term horizon.
So far we are just waiting for the small caps to correct completely. But small caps and mid caps are expected to be the leaders of the again. They are that's a very strong sector that always leads. Whenever the rallies happen, so I'm expecting the small caps and the mid caps to rally again very well. So view is definitely positive, but the correction has not yet completed in my especially in mid caps have barely corrected. Small caps have still been doing something, but mid caps have hardly corrected yet. So let the correction complete, but overall picture is bright for both of them.
राइट परफेक्ट सर सर क्वेश्चंस हमारे पास बहुत 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 सारे आ रहे हैं ऑफ कोर्स मुझे तो बॉलिंग करनी है बैटिंग आपको करनी है तो यू टेल मी
Yeah, I've time for a few minutes. Let's see.
Okay, so let's take up a few more questions. Okay. All right. Let me pick up a few common questions जो कि multiple लोगों ने पूछे हुए हैं. And so I think that will be helpful for. Okay, so this is interesting. So Sandeep sir has asked about algo trading setups, and Sandeep sir, we have requested Piyush sir to do a complete session on algo setups, and we try to learn from him. So I'll try to take that up there. Okay. Bank Nifty, we have kind of discussed already. Purav sir, you can maybe listen to the recording once you release it. Metal sector, we have discussed. Rohit sir. Okay, this is very interesting. Nishan sir has asked, recommend one book or any source to learn technical analysis, please.
Oh, I wish I could just say one book. There is actually not. There's no single book that covers everything. Uh, Technical analysis completely very difficult to say that. There are actually so many books. So for the classical patterns, there would be another thing. There would be candlesticks. There would be another book for candlesticks. There would be another book for indicators. So Martin Brigg book for indicators. For classical patterns, you can check John Murphy. For candlesticks, you can check Gregory Morris. But even if you go for the minimum, there will be at least 5-7 books. The books cannot be lesser than that somehow.
Right. Awesome, sir. Okay, so sir, दो तीन questions इस पे आए हैं. निशान सर का है, रोहित सर का है. I also saw one more question around this. Basically, where do you see the market bottoming out? कुछ questions directly वो पूछ रहे हैं, कुछ questions are asking, sir, do you expect Nifty to hit 12,000 or 13,000 in 1 year or so?
So right now, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, that okay, there is unless if the correction is not happening in price depth, then the correction will happen in time. It will continue going sideways. So if I would not rule out the 11,000 to 13,000 band. I will not rule that out. But at the same time, it's difficult to be very certain in the corrective phases about the corrective phases that this price will happen, because corrections are the shape of the corrections are extremely difficult to predict or project in any other way, in any which way. So if it continues to go sideways for another 6-8 months, there's a chance that 14,000 can never happen also. So but if, let's just say, there are two scenarios. First scenario is that the price corrects to 11,000, 12,000, 13,000, which should be the likely bottom for Nifty as well. Likely bottom. Not, we cannot again say with any certainty. That is the part one scenario. The part two scenario is that the price does not really crack but continues going sideways. If DIIs keep supporting, if retail keeps investing, retail does not get exhausted and rides out the entire dollar index upward cycle, and the market keeps on going on the sideways direction, large swings between say 15,000 to 18,000. We keep on seeing large swings for another 6-8 months. The chances are that it might just bottom between 14,000-15,000 as well. So if it continues going this way on the sideways pattern for a very long period of time, which was larger than say the 18-month rally, somewhere around that time by then, so we can say that it's not necessarily that it should also correct in price. We have seen such kind of scenarios on longer term charts of Bharti Airtel. We have seen that in PSU index. We have seen, if you internationally, if you see, we have seen in Microsoft. So where the prices keep on going sideways for a very large period of time, but do not correct in price. So that kind of correction can also happen.
Right. Perfect, sir. Okay, sir. Now, next question is again by Kiran sir, but this is a very good question, and I want to kind of discuss this in detail. He's asked, how much importance do you give to stop loss? But I want to expand this question to more of what is your risk management strategy in general, and how do you manage it?
So stop loss, in my opinion, is the second layer part of the risk management strategy. The larger risk management strategies are always first thing about one, you allocate the capital to various different strategies. That is the part one of the risk management strategy. So once you have multiple strategies, your risk is more or less divided across the strategies. The second part is the position sizing. That any which way in any strategy, just don't take a lot of heavy bet. Just don't go, even suppose you are having a whatever is your amount dedicated to that strategy, don't take more than 10-15% for a single bet, for a single rise, or whatever the single bet you are taking. So position sizing is the second layer of the risk management. Third layer is stop loss. And yes, I adhere to all of them, because first of all, over the years, I've understood that every strategy has its own drawdowns. Every strategy works, but every strategy works sometime, but no strategy works all the time. So every strategy has its own downtime, its own drawdowns, and all. So the second part is that even if your strategies are probably above average in nature, with your above average intellect, and you follow them with discipline, you can ruin your life if you go bad on position sizing. So you can just take a very bad bet with a very high position, and if you go wrong, you could be having a 80% strike rate, But you take 5% wrong bets with heavy positions, that can ruin your entire 6 months, 8 months of profits. So position sizing is the second layer. And yes, you should adhere to the stop losses. Even if you are slightly loose somewhere, you should, at some point of time before entering the trade, the hypothesis should be clear that below this or above that, whatever I'm thinking goes wrong, is invalid. So you'll have to accept. So before you enter the trade, you have to decide that point and stick to that. So, but stop loss is probably the third one. The first one is always the multiple strategies, then the position sizing. Even if you're going right on these two part, the chances are that you will survive, you will float.
Right. Perfect, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. सर अगेन क्वेश्चंस अभी भी बहुत सारे आ रहे हैं. आई थिंक रिसेंट वाइल में हम लोगों के पास इतना ज्यादा एंगेजमेंट, इतने ज्यादा क्वेश्चंस आई डोंट रिमेम्बर लास्ट किस पॉडकास्ट में आए थे. एंड इवन नाउ लाइक इफ आई लुक एट एक्चुअली इफ आई लेट मी सी एक्चुअली कितने हमारे पास कमेंट्स आ गए हैं इस पे, just for curiosity sake. We've got 65 comments. That means 65 questions, and I think we have answered over 40, 45 probably. This is amazing, but of course, all good things come to an end. Aaj we have taken your promise that we will get to learn from you about algo trading again. So I'm assured कि ठीक है, एक और मौका मुझे मिलेगा. But before we part for tonight, I kind of want to have a final concluding remark, a quick summary or advice for us, or maybe a nice meme from you. Anything that you would want to share with us, with the audience tonight, sir. Okay. मैं बोलता क्या, और आई थिंक पीयूष सर का कनेक्शन का कुछ छोटा सा इशू आ गया. Right. So Twitter does that. I'm sorry, audience, for this thing, but we will have that concluding remark from sir. I'm sure he'll just join back. Let me just quote it. Give me 1 second. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
So you were asking some last question or something. She was
Yes. So मैं वही बोल रहा था कि सर हम लोगों ने आपसे ये तो प्रॉमिस लिया है कि यू विल टीच अस अबाउट algo trading once again. So I'm assured कि ठीक है, एक और मौका मिलेगा क्वेश्चंस पूछने का. But before we part, one maybe quick concluding remark or an advice or a meme or a joke or anything that you maybe want to share with our audience tonight, sir.
So meme or a joke, I'll just leave it to the tweet part of it. But yeah, the biggest learning that which I want to tell you, which I have seen, is that even while we are tracking the technicals, even while we are trading and everything, just keep a very balanced life. So which we don't really talk about much. So you should, in my opinion, I would really say that as traders, we just get hooked onto the screen and we track the world markets. We keep on doing each of those things, but try to have a very balanced life. Try to exercise every day. Have a good diet, healthy diet, and have a good sleeping hours of at least 7 to 8 hours with a good sleep schedule. This will always keep you in good stead, whatever happens, and stay in good health.
That is amazing, sir. That is just awesome. This has been brilliant. मेरे को बहुत मजा आया सर आपसे आज सीखने में, बातें करने में. And once again, please do allow us to host you again, to learn from you again, sir. And I hope that happens very soon.
Yeah, we'll definitely do some session on algos as well. So we'll do a session sometime. Definitely.
Awesome.
I love being here, answering all the questions. Even I don't get much time to answer all the questions from all the people over Twitter. So today I've answered. So it's good to interact. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And of course, our audience tonight, thank you so much for being here, being such a beautiful audience. So many interesting questions. I think we have almost for an hour, we had over 600 people listening to us. Thank you so much for your patience. And of course, sir, all of this kudos to your talent, your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you so much.